Today on CityCast DC, we're talking about the politics of body cam footage around federal arrests in DC. We're going to talk about your crazy high utility bills and whether you are right to be righteously pissed off about them. And we're talking about a possible tax break in DC for bidets. Yes, you heard that right. Plus, in a members-only fourth segment, what's going on with your taxes? Did Congress really whack DC's tax code or not? It is up for debate. I'm here with CityCast's Julia Karen and the 51st Martin Austermule. Today is Friday, March 6th. I'm Michael Schaefer. Here's what DC's talking about. Hey, Martin.
Hey, Michael. How are you?
I am great, and it's good to see you. Hey, Julia.
Hey, Mike.
So before we get going, in case anybody missed it, CityCast, the podcast you're listening to, has just dropped a brand new podcast. It's called Your City Could Be Better because, let's face it, it could be. Every week, our CEO, David Blotz, chats with my colleagues from across the 13 CityCast teams to talk about the weird things our cities are trying, where they're growing, and how they're succeeding. This week's episode takes us to Salt Lake, where a national think tank wants to institutionalize unhoused people regardless of what the locals think. Your City Could Be Better has also featured conversations about how the anti-ICE movement in the Twin Cities mobilized so quickly, the backlash against data centers in Madison, and an unusual plan that's got dozens of new storefronts opening quickly in downtown Pittsburgh. Check out the episodes now on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So one way our city could be better, you guys, is by having a little bit of transparency around the myriad of federal agents who are on our streets, have been, actually always have been, but particularly have been in controversial effect since Trump's police takeover and the ICE surge last year. There's a bill in the council that would, the DC council does not have the power to force feds to give up their body cam footage, but it can force local police who have to have body cams on when they are involved in an action with citizens. It can force them, if they happen to catch what the feds are up to on their body cams, to release those. The council seems to be all for it. The mayor, who's going to have to deal with the feds and deal with the Trump administration, it seems to be a little bit less enthused. Martin, you've been covering this. You've been covering it really well. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, you covered the basics of it. What the bill would do, and this is an emergency bill that passed this week, it would basically require that this body camera footage be released if a DC police officer is on patrol with a federal agent and a federal agent shoots their gun or uses deadly force. It would also require the city to collect the names and identifying information of federal agents that are patrolling with MPD. So basically, this is a mechanism for people to know who's out there and what they're doing. Now,
and with that information about their names and stuff, would that then be publicly available?
It would be included in arrest reports and things like that. So they're not going to blast it out in press releases to people, but if you go to court and you look up the arrest documentation, it would be included there. So people know what's going on.
It's public info is what we're getting after, basically, at that point.
Exactly. So like you said, the mayor came out in a letter this week and said, listen, I don't want to do this. This is up to Congress. They should be the ones to legislate whether or not federal agents should be wearing body cameras. Lots of folks on the council saw that as a cop-out because this isn't about forcing federal agents to do anything. This is about using DC's existing body cameras, which there are many, and just turning more of its footage over.
Wait, Martin, has there been incidents that have been captured on DC cops' body cam involving feds that have not been released?
Yes, at least two. These are these two high-profile shootings that happened late last year involving HSI agents. Those are kind of like Homeland Security agents that patrol with DC police officers. They shot at two DC residents on two separate occasions. MPD was on hand for those, and there is footage. Now, council members themselves have seen the footage because they're allowed to request it. It can't be made public for the rest of us, though. They have not said to me whether it was enlightening, whether it added any additional details that wasn't finally reported. But I think the point is that there are cases that this has happened, and there could be cases in the future. And if the footage is available, why not make it available? Why not publicize it?
The footage exists right now of these agents from the Homeland Security Investigations, crack unit, no doubt, from Kristi Noem's team, shooting at residents on the streets of Washington that could either show that they were behaving terribly or could exonerate them and show that it was like completely justified. And we don't get to see it or know what's in it.
Basically. And the thing is, it's funny you say it could either show that they did something wrong or it exonerates them. We've seen a lot of body camera footage come out from DC police officers. Often it does neither of the two. It's in the eye of the beholder. Like, if you think the cops were to blame to begin with, you'll find footage to prove that point. If you think the cops are great and do no wrong, the footage will prove that point for you. So again, it is an issue of transparency. Will it enlighten us fully on what happened those nights when those shootings happened? Maybe, maybe not. But the thing is, I think there's a fair argument to be made that the footage exists. We release it when DC police officers do the shooting. Why not release it in other cases?
Right now, it's up to the city's discretion. They can release it if they want.
Now, it's completely up to the mayor's discretion. There is a provision of law that says she's basically allowed to release any body camera footage if there's great public interest. It doesn't define great public interest, but it basically leaves it up to her to decide whether there is interest or not. She has not used it to this point because, well, let's be honest, she probably doesn't want to piss off the feds.
Do we know anything about what the feds are saying to her about this, or what she's, whether this has been the subject of a conversation where they've leaned on her and said, listen, don't let this thing happen?
We don't know that. All we know is that the police chief, Jeffrey Carroll, the interim MPD chief, in testifying to the council about 2 weeks ago, he didn't really address whether the feds were saying anything about this. He just said logistically it'd be a pain in the butt for MPD, especially to collect the names of federal agents. And his issue was more that. He's concerned that that's going to be a friction point of having MPD officers run around and be like, hey, HSI officer, what's your name? What's your badge number? And go over to the ICE officer and get the same information. Like, he thinks that's going to be an issue.
What? Wait a minute. I don't mean to be the radical here, but like by definition, the people in this hypothetical fired a gun on the streets of DC. I think it's pretty legit for the local law enforcement to try to get their information. It might have been a justified firing, but
you're totally right. And
he's saying it's that much of a pain. Like, he has his police officers patrolling with these people, putting their legitimacy on the line by being seen with these people, and they can't even get their names.
I mean, you know the politics of this. If this was just a DC issue about getting transparency of which DC police officer did X, Y, and Z shooting, that's an easy debate to have. But I think internally in the government, at least with the mayor and the police chief, they're much more sensitive when it comes to anything federal policing. And they have been since last August.
Okay, except I would be better going out with my cell phone and recording and trying to do that. Would I not?
Oh, sure. I mean, that's the other part of this. In a lot of these cases, there are people doing the recording themselves. Now, in these two cases, these emblematic cases in DC, no one else was on hand but the police officer. So again, you're just taking their words, even though there is footage that could confirm or deny what they're claiming.
I get that Bowser and the police chief are in a tough spot. They do not want this to be the predicate for whatever next beastly thing the Trump administration does to their autonomy. I totally get that. I think they might need to come up with better excuses, because they're like, well, it's just too complicated to collect someone's name when you are, after all, a law enforcement agency that investigates murders. That seems like the transparency of the BS there seems completely nuts.
Well, they had one more argument, and this one is also a little tough to swallow sometimes. Their argument is that in DC, cooperating with some of these federal agencies and going out on patrol with them, they're actually restraining federal agents who otherwise might do really bad things. So basically having MPD on hand is a bit of a deterrent from like these federal agents going completely hog wild on DC.
Is it?
What would be a great way to demonstrate that? Showing us the video of the restraint.
I want to jump in here because I don't know if either of you watch John Oliver or HBO or whatever, but so he did a whole video this weekend about body-worn cameras and the limitations. Like, first of all, Axon, the company that owns a lot of these cameras, has like petabytes, PETA, like tons of data, and no one's going to watch it. Additionally, if you're strapped, the way that these body cams work is they're strapped to your chest. So like your sight line is limited, potentially. Like, what are you looking at? The dude's barrel chest or like the dude's face? You can't even see the guy's face half the time. Also, you have to like hunt for the stuff and hope it gets leaked. Who in DC's police department is going to leak this stuff? If it's restraint to make them look better, or if it's an ICE officer doing bad things potentially? I don't know.
I think that, I disagree. I think plenty of people, like we saw in that study that a number of council members put out, that the fact that they even ride around with ICE and others has done grave damage to the department's credibility with the citizens. Most normal cops want to go out and catch, muggers and killers and rapists, and they know that they need to get the public's cooperation with them in order to facilitate, like, get people to drop a dime on bad guys. They don't want their credibility to be shattered by riding around with what I have not heard this, but what I have to think that real cops assume are a bunch of like quick hired yahoos from agencies known for their low quality. So I mean, look, we have, whether body cams are like a high quality, dispositive evidence of whatever went down, or whether they are hard to read and subject to your own analysis. DC has decided as a city, in having its own rules about how its cops have to release body cams, that it is a valuable tool to know what's going on. So it seems to me that there's plenty of people in law enforcement who have an incentive to make the police appear credible.
But just to throw one additional complicating factor here, what transparency DC has right now, which the requirement is that within 5 days of a shooting or deadly use of force, footage has to be released unless the family of a victim says they don't want it released. That's DC law, applies to DC cops. Now, there's been a bill that has passed the House multiple times that Republicans are pushing again that would repeal that law. So it would get rid of what little transparency DC already has. And that push on the Hill is being supported by the DC Police Union. So the DC Police Union itself wants to get rid of the one bit of transparency that already exists on this body camera footage for DC cops. So there's a lot of fighting over transparency. But yeah, I mean, the question is, like, I get it. If the cops are doing nothing wrong, what's the deal with just putting the footage out there, or at least making it more accessible?
It's not just that. It's that yeah, I agree. And I think that the DC Police Union has taken or has a very, very Trumpy public face right now. But look, police who are trying to do their jobs are subject of all kinds of very, very negative caricature and insult. And I would think that having cams that show, like, hey, this is actually how we do our job, and we're trying to be respectful and safe and so on, that is a positive thing for getting the cooperation that they say is really necessary with the general public. And would be even more so with like ICE and HSI, because, look, these agencies are growing massively. They're hiring all kinds of people who show up with like no qualifications or
saw that article. That was fun.
Right. And I would think that if DC is having its law enforcement ride around with them, which I realize is not exactly a voluntary choice, they would want to do everything they can to say, like, we are not illegitimate by virtue of riding around with these people.
I mean, the obvious alternative is you play to Trump's desire to make everything a spectacle. You bring back the old show Cops. You send out TV crews with MPD and like federal officers, and you just like have live streaming of all of this on TV, on cable TV. Just get it done.
Put it to a hot soundtrack.
There you go.
Fun fact about me is that I'm a pretty big nerd. I was so into the X-Files in junior high that I had an X-Files themed birthday party with a cake that said, "The truth is out there." So if you are like me, and by that I mean if you are someone that is still bummed that Fox canceled the show Firefly and lives for all things pop culture, AwesomeCon is for you. AwesomeCon is coming to DC, and this is one, trust me, that you do not want to sleep on. March 13th through March 15th at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center, AwesomeCon is bringing together one of the most incredible stacked lineups I have ever seen. You've got folks like Oscar nominee Paul Giamatti. Yes, that Paul Giamatti. My personal idol, Gillian Anderson, my queen from the X-Files, George Takei, Misha Collins, Adam Savage, Ron Perlman, and so many more fan favorites will also be there. With tabletop and video gaming all weekend, a book fair, an artist showcase, and the family-friendly AwesomeCon Junior, there is truly something for everyone. 3 days, legends everywhere. You don't want to miss it, trust me. Buy your badges now at awesomecon.com.
Hey, I don't know about you, but I think we are super lucky in DC to have so many niche cultural events to enjoy. Like, for instance, a full event celebrating the indigenous art of porcupine quill work. The Art of Quillwork Family Day, hosted by the National Museum of the American Indian, is running Saturday, March 14th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. There'll be live artist demonstrations, guided tours, and hands-on exploration with a museum educator to deepen your understanding of this incredible art form. Families can also stop by the Imaginations Activity Center, where you'll discover how deer hide becomes clothing and accessories, and even design your own rawhide artwork inspired by the museum's collection. Best of all, it is completely free. Visit americanindian.si.edu or follow at Smithsonian NMAI for full event details. We'll see you there. All right, we should talk about utility bills while we're here. Did any of you guys get that weird Pepco email about your charges?
Yes, and I was extremely confused.
Yep.
I was confused, and then I promptly
deleted
it. What's going on with that?
I mean, look, I was still getting over my frustration with how high utility bills have gotten generally. But what they told us, or what they told a lot of people, is they misapplied a credit, or they applied a credit at the wrong time. So they underapplied it for the last month that we all paid. So they're going to have to overapply it for the month that's coming up. And fair, like, we get it. Administrative mistakes happen. But that all of this happens in the midst of plenty of people in DC being very pissed off about their utility bills that's quite a mistake to make.
When the utility became privatized, this idea that they're going to eventually pass this on and it's going to become much more expensive to you, that was part of the knock on it. Has that been borne out?
I mean, what's your utility bill look like? It seems like it.
Well, but I don't know, because look, utility bills are a function of a lot of things. Some of them outside the company's control. So I don't know if this is like greed, incompetence, or just like we live in a time when stuff's gotten expensive.
Well, this is why, again, like, even I admit that I assumed, like many in the public, that this had everything to do with the data centers out in Northern Virginia. I was like, it's their fault. This is the reason my Pepco bills are so high. Thankfully, we have a reporter on staff who dug into it and said, well, data centers are a part of it, but there's a lot of other complicated factors. And then there's lots of other reporting out there about how it varies by region, it varies by state, it varies by locality. I mean, there's a lot of things impacting bills in different places. So it's complicated. But the fact of the matter is, they are going up in places like DC. And I think the answers they're becoming more clear now, but it's still lost on lots of folks, because you're assuming normal folks are going to understand how rates are set, and the fact that there's a commission that plays a role in that. You know, there's a lot of people learning a lot about the Public Service Commission right now that they did not know before. God help us. But Martin, let's talk about the politics of this, because like you said, most regular people, most civilians don't have time to like figure out how their bill is calculated, much less to understand the like combination of government and the private sector that sets this. But a lot of people do have time to get mad at their mayor, mad at their council member, etc. How is that manifesting? Is that happening? Well, there's now a campaign for the council to play a more active role in who they appoint to the Public Service Commission, which eventually sets rates. Again, these are positions that are nominated and then confirmed by the council. The council most often just kind of goes along with it because it's never seemed to be a particularly controversial position to have. Now it's very controversial. And again, environmentalists and a bunch of other consumer groups are saying the council should just outright reject nominees or should push back a lot harder on these nominees. That's one side of it. And I think it is starting to come up in the mayoral race, because Kenyon McDuffie, one of the leading contenders, used to chair the committee that had that oversaw the Public Service Commission, and in theory would have a role to play on kind of rate setting and these sorts of debates. And now environmentalists are coming out and saying, listen, he is the reason that all these people are on the Public Service Commission who are greenlighting all these rate increases. Now it's probably a little more complicated than that, but yeah, the politics are definitely playing into it now. But he wants to make DC America's most affordable city, according to him. Yeah, no. And so obviously, I mean, I think it's a fair game now to ask him, well, what did you do? Is the stuff you did while you were a council member, did that help lead to the current affordability challenges that we're having, especially when it comes to Pepco? Can I just, as an aside, say that slogan, America's most affordable city, at first blush, sounds like the dumbest slogan I've ever heard.
Like, are we cheap or something?
Well,
Damn.
Yes, obviously, I would like Washington to not be so expensive. It's ridiculous how much we have to pay for housing and so on. But like, I would assume America's, like, if you look at a list of America's 10 most affordable cities, it includes 10 cities that most people in DC don't want to live in. being a very cheap city is a function of being economically desolate, disinvested, and grim.
Yeah, saying it's cheaper to live here than it is to live in Flint is maybe not
a plus.
Not a win for us.
Yeah, no, it's not a win. I mean, nothing against the idea of focusing on affordability, because you're not going to get elected if you don't. But I just think as a sloganeering matter, maybe it's better to go a different way.
No, and look, I also understand how all the campaigns are talking about affordability. But I think also in that they're hiding the fact that affordability is complicated. Like, it's not just a matter of the government saying, well, we're just going to make things cheaper. Isn't that easy? Especially when it comes to what you're paying for utility bills. There's a lot of steps along the way. There's a lot of players. And so I appreciate that as part of the conversation. I'm a little nervous that people are going to be casting a vote for someone saying, well, this candidate said that my electricity bill is going to be 50% lower next year. And come next year, it's not 50% lower, because it's not that easy.
Are the people running for mayor making promises to do stuff that they actually don't have the power to do?
Not just yet, but we got plenty of campaigning left to go. It's another 3.5 months until the primary, so we'll see.
Hi, I'm David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, a podcast network that includes this show you're listening to, and also 12 other CityCasts in 12 other cities. And each one knows their city as well as your local team knows yours. So isn't it time we connected them? Don't you want to know how they're tackling their bike lane problems and housing challenges and sidewalk dog poop crises? That's why I'm hosting a new podcast called Your City Could Be Better. Because it could be. Every week, I'll chat with a different host in our CityCast network about what their cities are doing right and wrong, the weird things they're trying, and the surprising successes, so that we can all learn how to make our cities a little bit better. Listen to Your City Could Be Better on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Martin, you also this week reported, at least on your social media, about another potential rate increase. This would be the rate for disposable wipes, which DC Council member and friend of CityCast, Christina Henderson, has proposed to tax at 15%, which is above the regular DC sales tax. The reasoning is that these disposable wipes are the culprit, or a culprit, of the Potomac sewage spill. They really don't break down when you flush them. They're supposedly flushable, but they're not. And it clogs sewers and leads to disasters and is expensive. And the idea is they'll use the money from this tax to fund repairs to the sewage system. Another component of the bill ends any sales tax on bidets. I don't know how much that sales tax currently brings in, but I'm pretty sure it's not very much. With the idea that it's better to not flush at all, or to not flush stuff down, flush paper stuff down at all. It seems to me like it all kind of adds up from a, it would be the best society possible point of view. It also seems to me like this is exactly why people hate progressives and progressive cities, that they're jerking around with like bidets and taxes on like that wasteful wipe that you snag at exactly a moment when you've spilled something that you didn't want to have spilled, instead of focusing on other things.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. This is a culture war over bathroom usage, and it's a weird one to fight. But at the same time, it makes sense. But it's like you said, like it's people who already think progressives are ridiculous. This is just more evidence for them. Now, a good example is Fairfax County a couple of weeks ago, after the big sewage pipe spill had happened, posted something on their Facebook page, on their Twitter account. And all it said was, go easy on the wipes. And all of it was linked to the fact that the wipes had clogged up one of the pumps at the site, caused more sewage overflow. That's all it was. Now, there's a lot of Republican operatives who live in Fairfax County, and it became a social media thing for them to use that as an example of, oh, this is big government telling us how to wipe our butts and things like that. And I get that must feel very satisfying to say. But there's a point. I mean, these things literally, there's plenty of utilities across the country in red and blue states alike who will generally say that these wipes are a nuisance. Like, they're very convenient for wiping yourself, but then they don't break down and then they clog up pipes. So
yeah,
just
Christina
don't flush
Henderson
them.
On her social media had basically a comparison of like a toilet normal toilet paper and like a wipe in like a vat of water and it's sat for however long, the toilet paper disintegrates. That's kind of the point. The wipe does not, even if it says it's flushable. So they do be lying about that.
I get all that. I just think that like advice to get a bidet and to switch to the bidet lifestyle, which like, I don't think that's going to make a big impact on someone who can't afford a bathroom renovation, period. But I think that advice is better to come from like lifestyle influencers than elected officials. That's just, I'm going out on a limb here, but like, that's my theory.
I think they can fit this one into our current moment. There's all this talk about making DC safe and beautiful again. Like the president loves classical architecture. Bidets are a French thing. DC was designed by a French guy. Like you can make a leap between what Pierre L'Enfant wanted for DC back then and what he wants now. He wants bidets, man.
So if he gets the arch, we get bidets. Is that the trade-off that we're going with the French thing?
I think DC residents would make that trade.
I would not. So I would read the hell out of an essay saying, we should switch as a culture to this, blah, blah, blah. But I think in the year of our Lord 2026, it's probably a good idea for elected officials not to mess around with that stuff because it can be caricatured in bad faith, as you said about Fairfax County, but it also, even for people in good faith, it kind of gives a sense that like these people's priorities, I don't even know if I disagree with the bill, but these people's priorities are completely wrong. This is not a thing they should be talking about. Martin, the bill that Christina Henderson introduced, which targets flushable wipes. I've never asked a question like this in a professional capacity, but are there exemptions to the wipe tax?
There are, and actually, when I first started looking into this and posted about it yesterday, there was the usual people saying, oh, this is progressives trying to legislate how I can wipe my butt. And then other folks, like very well-meaning progressive people saying, I've got kids, I use these all the time. This is just going to increase the cost for me because the tax would be 15%. The normal sales tax in DC is 6%, so it's not insignificant. Now, she did clarify that it does exempt baby wipes. So this is just the sorts of wipes that I guess adults get. For whatever adults use these wipes for.
Right. We all used a bunch of them during COVID because we were supposed to be wiping down our groceries. Also, I think like just as a practical matter, like buying those disposable wipes is a really dumb thing to do. Just it's expensive. There's much easier ways of like just a paper towel and some like
Lysol. If your counter. Right. If it's your counter.
Thanks for the product placement. I was reaching for it. That's a much cheaper way to do it, right? So if people were really concerned about their domestic budget, they would do that. So adding an extra 9%, the delta between the DC sales tax and the proposed wipe tax, seems. I just don't think that's going to be very effective in changing people's behavior because people who have embraced the disposable wipe lifestyle have already decided that they have higher priorities than just saving money.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this to Henderson's credit, or maybe in her defense slightly, this is not the first volley or I guess the first kind of battle that has been waged in the war against wipes in the district. I mean, back in 2017, the city actually tried to require all wipes producers to indicate on the container itself whether it's flushable or non-flushable. There's apparently a distinction. It's an important distinction. Now, the wipes producers, the big companies that produce these things, sued and said that is unconstitutional. It's forced speech.
Do not mess with Big Wipe.
Seriously. So, and the district lost that case. They could not require that non-flushable be written on these packages of non-flushable wipes. Now, things went on, and there was ultimately a class action lawsuit in South Carolina, not a blue state, about wipes and the impact on sewage pipes. And basically now there is kind of an agreement. They're going to find a way, the states are going to find a way with these producers to actually make sure that it is indicated very clearly in some sort of way that like you should not flush it. The point is, whether it's flushable or not, most people say the non-flushable ones are only mildly better than the flushable ones, I guess. Or like there's not a huge distinction necessarily. So just don't use them, or if you use them, just don't flush them, basically.
Martin, is the bill going to pass?
With a name like the CLOG Act, which, by the way, stands for Consumer Levies on Obstructing Garbage, I don't know, man. That alone, does that sink it?
I think it might be some masterful legislative trolling. I mean, maybe she doesn't expect it to pass, but she's continuing the conversation. I think what happened with the Potomac sewage pipe break is a good way to talk about this again, because DC Water put that picture of the gross pile of wipes that had clogged up the pumps.
Oh, it's nasty.
She's an effective legislator and not typically one to jump on sort of dopey lifestyle issues.
No, but I will say this. So you earlier mentioned this podcast, which I'm really excited to listen to, about, the things that cities are doing. Maybe a year from now, you can have a cool story about how DC has adopted bidets and everybody is just, bidets are the new lifestyle craze in DC.
There's jokes I could make here. I'm holding myself back.
All right, I want to give a big thank you to our newest CityCast DC neighbor, Matthew Y. Thank you for your support. Today, paid subscribers get a bonus 4th roundup chat. We're going to talk about the latest update in DC's tax code decoupling saga. It's more exciting than that name suggests. If you want to be sure you always get the full episode, become a member. Head to membership.citycast.fm and sign up. It's only $10 a month. Members get ad-free listening, exclusive members events, and an extra events newsletter every week. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. All right, and that is all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Annie Reese, Julia Karen, and Ash Durbin. Newsletter editor Kayla Cote-Stemmerman wrote our fabulous newsletter, CityCast DC, this week. And our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer. Music is by Alex Roldan, with additional music from Blue Lou and Philip Ayers from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. If you enjoyed the show, why not just scrawl our name on the nearest counter, because no one's going to be able to afford the wet wipes that they need to clean it off. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.